Radio.
3rd down and 7, shotgun snap to Bo Nix. Looks right, throws a fade. He's got the wide open receiver in the end zone. That is a touchdown, Denver, and that is Cortland Sutton.
Here's the snap, chest high. Mayfield looking to his left, still looking to his left, directing traffic. Throws the ball downfield. Caught ball. Mike Evans down the sideline. Is he inbounds to the 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Swing it on the near flat with a screen. Worthy 15, 10, downfield block. Touchdown! Kansas City on a swing screen to the near side to Xavier Worthy. And now the Kansas City Chiefs have their first 3-possession lead of the season and maybe their first 3-touchdown lead of the season.
Pass made Franklin, the slide, Robinson, block back! Go the Grandcats! They did it! Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin for the 3rd time this season. And hello, Louisville. The Big Red back where it belongs. The Final Four, number 18 in school history.
Hands it off to Williams. Long three on the way. Bang! 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 Gary's 3 on the way. Bang! 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 Bang!
Good morning. Welcome in Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What is going on?
Busy weekend.
Shoot, I barely left the house.
Well, it doesn't mean it wasn't busy.
I mean, sports was.
A lot going on.
Yeah. It was all right, but I enjoyed doing next to nothing.
I'll say, how was the downtime?
Downtime was good. I binged 6 episodes of a show.
Okay.
In one morning. So from 6:10, probably 5:40 to, I don't know, 9:50.
What are we watching?
Landman.
Oh, the one with Billy Bob Thornton?
Yeah, ran through it.
Big oil man?
Not particularly. I didn't know that's what it all entails.
Oh, I meant he's a big oil man in the.
Yeah, so basically he gets the leases for the land.
Okay, gotcha.
So he's like, he has a boss, that's clear.
Yeah.
But
it's John Hamm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it is, so far I'm captivated.
And
I had to wait for the 6th episode, but it dropped.
But
I was seeing it on TikTok, so
that's what I was going to ask, if you were like sucked in by the TikTok algorithm.
Yeah, well, TikTok is the only reason why I started watching it.
It's been on mine a ton.
It wasn't even on my radar to knock off.
Yeah.
But I could stay current, and I mean, I ripped right through it.
How was it?
It's really good.
You like it a lot?
Yeah, it is. I used to like old Allie Larder.
Yeah,
was fine. She's a little much.
Yeah.
Especially with all the, I'm anti-enhancement.
Sure.
So it's like, it's not that, but her character is annoying too.
Yeah. She's the ex-wife.
Yeah, kind of.
Ex in.
Yeah. I mean, I get her vibe, but
yeah,
she's a little, I'm plain Jane.
A lot going on there.
I'm like super plain Jane. I don't even like nail polish. But like, he's kind of Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah, that's kind of what Billy Bob Thornton does.
But there's some cool characters. His daughter, I didn't think I was gonna like, but she's beginning to have some redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
You ever watch those shows and it's like, man, I would kill these kids. Like that's how I was with Ozark.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why not just off them?
That's how I was with Succession.
Never saw it.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, so it gets all the acclaim and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Not a single person in that show is likable.
Yeah. So I
can like bad people.
So I like Billy Bob Thornton's roommate.
Okay.
That works on the sites. I like his lawyer, his attorney.
Yeah.
They rent this house in West Texas. Spoiler alert if you're not into Landman. And I kind of like Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
He's super pragmatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like zero gray.
That's kind of the Billy Bob Thornton deal, right? He's just kind of
pretty
real black and white, just kind of says it how it is.
Yeah, so his son Coop is recovering. They got to put on him pretty good, and so that's where it kind of left off.
All right.
But it's so far it's fantastic.
Yeah, it looks interesting from TikTok.
I didn't know if it was like the knockoff version of Yellowstone, but Yellowstone I got too far behind.
Yeah.
So I 86'd it.
It does give. I think it's the same writer, but it does give Yellowstone vibes. Yeah. But that's all right. I didn't get into any Landman this weekend, but
no, but I did watch a lot of sports.
A lot of sports.
Started with one of the worst lines in America, but it held.
Which one was that?
Just Nebraska, Indiana.
Oh yeah, you were all over that one.
Yeah, it's a bad team.
What did I text you after that game on?
Yeah. You and D. Marinas. Some of the analogies, like, dude, the Kyle Neptune thing had me in tears. But yeah, it's just.
What did he say? He said that Mike Woodson is the John Wooden of Kyle Neptune's. Yeah, that's right. And I said somehow that's both insulting to John Wooden, Kyle Neptune, and Mike Woodson.
Yeah. And then it just took off from there. I thought Army Navy was fantastic.
I was a little disappointed.
Were you disappointed over the weather?
No, I wanted Army to win.
Yeah, I told you. But we both like Navy.
I know, but I like Jeff Monken. I wanted him to win.
Oh,
it's just my affinity.
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily what I thought was actually going to happen. I like Jeff Monken.
I think the way that they whipped them kind of surprised some people.
Oh, I was surprised it was that bad. Like, it was pretty dominant.
Yeah, Horvath, he looked pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Navy too a lot, but I'm a Jeff Monken guy.
So I got the sense, texting back and forth, we were watching different things.
Yeah.
So I was all in on volleyball, and I think you were watching football?
Mostly, yeah. So I did watch, obviously, Nebraska and Creighton, but I wasn't super dialed in on volleyball outside of that. Outside of the local teams, I was watching football.
Because I must have made some reference.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but I was not dialed in on that.
Yeah, no. I was like, oh.
Well, and then yesterday, like, you're watching Omaha, Iowa State.
Yeah, I was hitting you with that.
And I'm like, I'm watching the NFL, man. I don't know what's.
So the afternoon slate was terrible.
It was. I was still watching it.
It was. But I mean, but the late day slate was even worse, and it was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be good.
It was supposed to be way good. And it was trash.
At least there were some promising matchups in the late window. There was nothing in the early window.
Yeah, so
it was
rough. It was on CBS Sports. So it was easy. I didn't even have to
get to ESPN Plus or anything like you usually do.
Yeah, but after the 17th turnover, I was like, "Ooh, this has gone south in a hurry." I think they finished with 19.
Yeah, well,
because it's not like Iowa State took great care of the ball either. They turned it over 12 times, I think.
Yeah, you texted me when Omaha was hanging tough in the first half.
Oh, my new kids on the block reference.
About was 6 minutes left in the first half, somewhere in there.
28-20 maybe, somewhere around there. I can't remember what the
I looked
score.
at 31-23.
Was it 31-23?
It was when I looked. It was an 8-point game. And then I looked 2 minutes later, and it was 41-23 at halftime. I was like, oh, that escalated quickly.
They couldn't take care of the basketball.
Yeah. Well, it's Iowa State makes it tough on you.
Couldn't take care of the basketball. But I like Iowa State. I don't know if I love them.
I don't. I don't. They're good. I don't know if they're the third best team in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know that I watch them and I go, yeah, that's the team I think can win a national championship, because that's basically what you're saying, a top three.
I went out on a limb calling outright wins and came up just short. I told you and D. Maurice in the morning, Tennessee would get beat.
Yep, 2-point buzzer beater.
And I also told you guys that
Creighton was going to win.
Creighton would beat Penn State.
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
They had some opportunities.
Just couldn't get over the proverbial.
And then fifth set never really was close, but they had their opportunities before that.
Hey, do you like how small that court is?
Dude, it feels like the fans are on top of you.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I think that's 20 in a row. They won there, too.
Yeah, the stat was all-time going into that. They were 74-3 in NCAA tournament games, which is
it's boxy.
That's a tough place to play.
You see, Louisville is already sold out.
That's not
flights ranged anywhere from 680 to 1170.
That's not surprising. I mean, whew.
Which is going to be interesting. I think if Nebraska's in the finals, I think Jess has to go from Louisville to New York.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So Louisville, New York, and then back to Louisville?
Because the finals is the 22nd. right?
Oh, yeah, you're right. So she has to go straight to New York because you guys are leaving on the 23rd.
Yep.
That'll be fun for her.
That'd be. I'm crying about packing for 5 days. Like, that's just not my style.
Yeah.
It's a total first world problem.
Yeah. Just not,
like
not a fan.
Right? Yeah.
No, I get it. I don't like being gone for a super long time.
I don't.
And yeah, I don't know New York would be my first pick, but
it's like
New York feels like a day trip for me. Like I'd go somewhere else, I'd spend a day in New York and then go back to the other place I was staying.
So my sister, remember I was joking about Airbnb. So she's leaving on the 27th. Like I think she changed her flight.
Yeah.
Now she's coming to the game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but she leaves my mom. She leaves here on the 27th.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I thought you were saying, yeah.
So she's here from like the 20th to the 27th, maybe.
Oh, so you'll barely cross over with her in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enough for Caleb to grab her a ticket.
Yeah, that's good.
But the weekend, I mean, I was sad to see LeBron come back. Well, there was a lot, man.
Yeah, the real LeBron thing was super weird. I still don't know what's going on there. He is a weird guy.
I was hoping the Jets lost. I was cheering for chaos.
Always hope the Jets lose.
Hey, so remember how you were talking about this might be more of a franchise thing, that you didn't think Anthony Richardson was very smart?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I don't think the Colts are.
I don't either.
What was that?
Dude, I don't know, because you text me yesterday morning, I think, or Saturday night, and you're like, I kind of like the Colts. And I kind of did too, honestly.
Yeah, they had 1,000 opportunities to put that, not just win, but put the game away. They couldn't do that. They got drubbed late.
And they straight up gave away 2 touchdowns. Directly gave away 2 touchdowns.
It's incredible.
What is that double pass thing?
I don't know.
What are they doing?
I don't know.
And I don't know. My God, Jonathan Taylor, how many times do we have to see this?
It's incredible.
Like,
what
how many times do we have to see people drop the football?
What would be your hurry to get rid of the ball?
I don't understand. That's what I don't understand. And it doesn't even look cool. It's not like I don't know what the upside is, right? Normally when people do dumb stuff, I can be like, oh, I understand. Here's what's in it for you. I do not understand what is in it for the person that drops the football early.
Yep.
Like, do you think it's the coolest thing in the world to drop it the second you cross the goal line?
It doesn't make any sense.
You know what's a lot cooler? Scoring a touchdown. Much cooler than fumbling out the side of the end zone.
I had to. It's the second time in 4 days I had to reset my algorithm for TikTok.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I went down a wrestling rabbit hole like Saturday night into Sunday morning. So then I was seeing a lot of, I love wrestling, but it was a little much.
Yeah.
And then I told you about the esthetician and the bad hygiene. I had to reset that the other day. But the other one was basically it's Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
And like press snippets. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't need to see all that.
I don't even know how I got on it.
You just like press conferences, so it probably
yeah, maybe because I was watching Tomlin when he said, it's a pretty simple game.
Yeah,
you
got to be careful with the algorithm though, right?
Can't turn the ball over and you have to tackle it out in space.
Yeah,
we didn't do either one of those, but we had our opportunities.
Yeah,
let's not overcomplicate this thing, fellas. Like that's how he talks.
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what? You're right.
I feel like that's how Aaron Rodgers tries to talk, but it ends up sounding like riddles.
You know how bad I was just hoping for an L.
Yeah, just catching that L to Jacksonville.
That's a bad team.
Oh, it's terrible.
I wonder what's wrong with the Jets' defense, though.
Well, they fired their head coach, who was pretty good defensive mind.
Yeah, maybe that's not for Ulbrich, but
I think that a lot of those defensive guys really liked Robert Saleh.
Yeah,
and were probably not super happy when he got. Because Aaron Rodgers is terrible. Let's be honest. That's why he got fired, right? Because Aaron Rodgers is bad at football.
Yeah, he is now.
And this year. I'm not saying he used to be, but
no. So, I know why.
Why?
It was the back and forth, because Ryan Clark responded to what he said when Aaron was like, I don't know. Aaron basically turned around and did what he was mad at everybody else for doing.
He does it a lot, actually.
No, but like legitimately, like going on air, getting paid to have an opinion and having a hot take.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah. He's not like the bastion for not being hypocritical.
Bastion. That's a good word. And so, Saturday night, obviously watch Creighton.
Yeah.
I didn't do much.
I neither did Creighton, to be honest with you.
That was a little better than I thought, though, especially when I thought they were going to get their doors blown off
early. Yeah. After the hole they dug early, but I never felt like they were. I don't know. I never felt like they were in it.
Yeah.
Like I never thought they were going to win. After that early start, I was like, this is going to be a varying degrees of how bad it gets, but they're not going to win this game.
So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And, obviously Nebraska's going to make a couple of hires official and having a good stretch of practice too. So the amount of time I spent away from my home this weekend was next to none.
Which is, your favorite, right?
Oh, yeah. Nobody can unplug like I can.
If you don't want to leave the house, that's your sweet spot right there.
Yep. I mean, didn't even. I don't even think I started my truck once.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't think.
You didn't go out to get food or anything? Or groceries?
Well, I saw AC Saturday.
Okay.
Who's hilarious, by the way.
Did he come to you? Or did you go to him?
No, we got a quick meal.
Okay.
And it's a funny dude. But anyway, that was about it.
That's not bad.
Not one grocery store trip. I did do Instacart and was kind of mad at myself. And I'm only telling you this because it's just us. I did the thing where I ordered breakfast and I didn't eat it. It's still in my microwave.
You actually went through and ordered it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Still 2 burritos in my microwave.
You usually will go.
I caved at the last. It's just me and Zoe because we were the only ones home. And I just was like, fudge, I'm going to do it.
And you did it.
And I didn't do it.
And then you didn't eat it.
Nope.
Because usually you'll put it in the cart and you never order it.
Yeah.
You actually pulled the trigger?
I pulled the trigger.
And then you didn't eat it?
From Taco John's, nonetheless. Because I could get double the meat and I was just going to scrape it out.
Yeah.
No.
Didn't do it?
To like right now, they're still in the microwave.
I probably
haven't even come out of the paper.
I probably wouldn't eat those anymore, man.
Yeah. The gamification, I may just have to not want to waste the $9.
Yeah, you probably should put them in the fridge if you were gonna go back and get those.
So that's what your guy did.
The wife is gonna have a conversation with my wife is gonna have a conversation with you about food safety and temps.
Oh, is that a thing?
Super happy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm the worst. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me.
She's super because of the kitchen stuff. She's super. Very regimented about.
Oh yeah,
about not.
She would be mortified.
Probably.
Stuff doesn't. No, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But sometimes stuff will sit on the stove for 3 days in containers. I don't know why we don't just move from the container
to the fridge.
Yeah,
that's an important step.
You stack it nicely.
And that's the easiest step.
Yeah, just
getting them in the containers is the hard part.
The struggle is real.
Right? If somebody got
that's right away. There are 0 dishes.
See.
Nothing.
That's where I struggle getting it into the containers.
No, that just can't happen.
If it's in a container, it's going in the fridge.
That just can't happen.
It might go in the fridge if there's no container. I'll get it in the fridge one way or another.
That just can't happen.
I've put whole pots in the fridge before. Just put the whole thing in there.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Are you playing?
No, I'm listen, it's got to go in the fridge. It doesn't have to go in the container, but it has to go in the fridge. You're the one leaving burritos in the microwave for 3 days. You can't judge me.
It's only been one. It's not even been quite 24 hours. Because you don't want to really put them in the fridge because I don't know if I want to repurpose the eggs like that. So I'm just trying to.
But you're going to open them up and scrape it out anyway, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you could kind of dice that up however you wanted it.
This morning and it was a little hard.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's not flattering.
It's been sitting for a minute.
Anywho, yeah. So I made that mistake, but outside of that, it wasn't too bad.
Coming up on the show today, we've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald at 8:00. At 9, we will talk to the one and only Kevin Kugler. He'll tell us what he's been up to. He's all over the place as always. And then we'll get to some volleyball and basketball with Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports at 9:45. Yeah, it was. I do want to stick on volleyball here for a second. It was obviously a great weekend for Nebraska.
They're incredible.
Yeah, that's we use the term wagon sometimes. I think that applies here. That team is a wagon.
You realize they're not the favorite.
Which is nuts.
They are not the favorite.
Is it Louisville?
It is Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, I guess.
Pittsburgh is the fave.
That's I would maybe have given Louisville a nod because they're
fairly
home.
Close. I think it's 200, 240, 260.
Okay,
plus.
so they're all right in the neighborhood there.
Yeah,
And
everybody but Penn State.
And then Penn State's back of the pack a little bit.
So I showed you the odds, right? Was that you and Jacob or
Yep.
you and Maddie?
I don't remember which, but I was in the group, yeah.
So Creighton had the same odds to come out of the region as Penn State.
Yeah,
Both were plus
700
700
yeah.
or something like that, right? And as the match got close last night, it was almost a pick 'em.
Yeah.
So people respect Creighton.
I mean,
and I think it has a lot more to do with people respecting Creighton
than disrespecting Penn State.
Disrespecting Penn State, but Penn State is the lowest seed of the remaining four.
I will say,
our odds, I should say. I'm sorry.
And I think I saw this from our friend Josh Odson that
young Yeshua,
the Creighton has lost. I mean, obviously Creighton only lost 3 matches all year. All 3 of them were in the Final Four. All 3 of them went to 5 sets, and all 3 of them were true road matches. That's, I mean, I know there's no like moral victories here.
No, they're really good.
But that's an incredible volleyball team.
They're really good.
And they also obviously knock off 2-time defending national champion Texas, which is
it's like Maddie said, and I agreed. Because I boiled it down to just their pin hitters in general. But he was like, hey, especially if you go through their 6-man rotation, that's the best collection of outside hitters in the country, pin hitters in the country.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, which is, I go back and think a lot about where this program's come from in such a short amount of time and what Coach Booth has been able.
Although she's been here.
She's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
But to go from, where they've been, and I say short amount of time because, 20 years ago when this program didn't exist, basically, Nebraska and Penn State were winning national championships, right? Like, so in the scope of.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Penn State's last was in 99.
Right. So, which I believe is before Creighton reinstated the program.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know about their last one. Is that Penn State's last one? I know they won in 99 because I was just getting ready to go to Nebraska Cal.
Yeah.
For a football game.
And
you can believe that. How about that?
Back in 99?
Back in the day.
But for this program to basically find itself on even footing with those other programs when they didn't exist, when these programs were winning national titles, is kind of incredible. And we got to give a testament to Coach Booth there.
Definitely have to talk. Like, I know you not a super volleyball head, but when I told you a couple of months ago about Lexi Rodriguez and her intentional sprawling and diving in her style, I'm telling you it's a thing because you know who I see do it?
Who?
Men. I'm dead serious. I want to ask her about that.
Yeah.
There's no way. Hey, can we grab Lexi Rodriguez? We probably could.
I mean, we might be able to. Who knows?
Hey, is that intentional? Because you're really good at it.
That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB.
What's up?
You see, I'm sure you did, had our Nebraska official all-state teams come out this weekend.
I did.
That was you had some of your guys represented. That was good to see.
I try not to get in the weeds, even though that process takes, a while.
Oh, it does.
And then I think, obviously, you send that stuff over to Stu, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting group. Obviously,
difficult year in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of really good players, which makes it challenging. And
just weren't a ton of there was just a lot of sharing of, at least at the Class A level.
Like of numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was some
outside of there were some gaudy rushing numbers, obviously, with Tate and Tamala throwing the ball.
Yeah.
But, it was
a lot of the stats were split up.
Split out. Yeah. It was very, very spread out.
And it's really hard in a year like that because your tendency, I think, and this is kind of the way the World-Herald went, which, it's totally up, it makes sense, is a lot of times then the spots go to the couple of best teams, right?
Yeah.
So Millard South had a lot of representatives. Obviously, Westside had a lot of representatives as well. It was good to see. Got to shout out my Millard North guys. Got 4 second-teamers, which was nice to see. Was happy to have them be represented a little bit there. But congratulations to all the guys that I don't know. I used to love getting the paper and getting like the big spread with the whole color photos, and that was one of my favorite issues of the year. So I wanted to give that a quick shout out.
And we'll talk to Sam here in a little bit, but I don't know. There's a lot because you obviously have coaching, you have the high school, volleyball is hot.
Don't forget about the portal. Got so much portaling to do.
Yeah, portal's fine. I mean, Nebraska got a long snapper, so that's always good.
I was gonna say, I think this might be the place where getting a long snapper is the biggest deal.
Yeah, T-Mac sends a message this morning early. He said, "Oh, that's my man. That's the mayor. Happy to see NU hiring a true developers as coaches under rule. My major criticism with NU over the years is coaches coming to NU as their first major job and sometimes their first job overall." Yeah, see, I'm kind of with T-Mac. There was this misnomer, I think, a little bit that like Nebraska has somehow changed their philosophy. They're still going to develop.
Yeah,
like they're still going.
What do you think changed that? Because Rule talked about being more aggressive in the portal, or okay,
yeah,
yeah,
but they're going to have to.
Yeah, that's just the name of the game
just
now.
Because of they have some holes.
Yeah,
not necessarily. And believe me, they're going to take their time. They're not in a hurry.
Well, there's some guys you don't know what's going to happen with them, right? And so offensive line's a great example. Isaiah World, one of the top offensive tackles from the portal from Nevada, didn't give up a sack all year. He was in Lincoln this weekend. And you look at a guy like that, you mentioned you'd love to see them get a veteran tackle, right? And part of it's because, okay, we have no idea what's going to happen with Turner Corcoran. He could come back for another year. We don't know if he will or not. We have no idea what's going to happen with Teddy Prohaska. Those are 2 guys that would or could play tackle that we have no idea.
By the way,
yeah,
I have to say, because we went to school together and used to be really, really good friends. Teddy lost his mom.
Oh, shoot.
A couple days ago.
Oh, man, that's tough.
His mom, Katie. So thoughts go out to that family for sure. Who I have known we went to middle school together.
Yeah. It's about as far back as you can go.
So, yeah.
That's tough.
It is really, really tough on the fam. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I just mean from a football standpoint, you've got a couple guys that you don't really know what they're going to be, what they're going to do. Obviously Teddy's coming off of several injuries, like major injuries, and he's grown to a point where I think it's going to be really difficult for him to stay healthy throughout a season, honestly. Like, he's so tall and so big now, like that's going to be really challenging. You don't see a lot of linemen his size, and probably for decent reason. That's not to say he couldn't, but we just don't know. Same thing with Corcoran, has had several major injuries, has an opportunity to come back here, but you're talking about the holes that they've got, whether it's on offensive line just because of uncertainty, whether it's because of defensive line because of departures, or wide receivers with graduation. Like, yeah, they've got some spots they could definitely use some help. So I do think people maybe misconstrued what Rule said about being aggressive in the portal.
Yeah.
I took it as not specifically being just to this year, but I didn't take it as, oh, we're going to give up on development.
He's going to do what he's always done. They're going to try to build regionally in the trenches, sprinkle in the D-line from across the country, and keep broadening your horizons and in Texas and in Florida and St. Louis for your skill guys. I think that's going to kind of be how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're going all in on Florida. Obviously, the name that's out there that should be made official soon, Addison Williams, he's from UCF, was defensive coordinator this year. And that makes it, 3 defensive coordinators?
With coordinating experience, yeah.
Yeah, and then 3 guys with offensive coordinating experience on the other side of the ball as well. I don't think that's an accident.
No, and I go back to the conversation we had last week when I was talking to Coach Rulla, and I just was running through like a laundry list of what he was looking for, right? And of course, it was weird. It's another missed tackle by the Steelers. It was, hey, this kind of thing, front thing, type of player thing. What kind of guy? He's like, I want an answer guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that let me know that's somebody that he wants to have experience with being able to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
Right. Not married to a particular thing, able to adjust on the fly. Because that's really what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could talk about skill and talent, and it's always going to matter. But, man, I think now more than ever, coaching matters.
Yeah.
It truly matters. And I think the ability to stop the bleeding and adjust on the fly is huge. And he wants to be a guy that can game plan, right? I just think, well, we've always done this, so we do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of wants to, it's not get away from that, but I think game planning is very, very, very important to him.
You mean more like opponent-specific game planning?
Yes.
Which is kind of an NFL model.
It is.
Stylistically.
To some degree. I mean, yeah. But if your staff is up to it, and then I think it can work anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we change defensively almost every week at the high school level.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some basics to what we do, but, I mean, situationally, it's like we'll game plan.
Yeah.
We certainly – I mean – so it can be done. You just have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work.
It is.
It's on both coaching and player part, right? Like it's a lot of work.
You seen our scouting reports? Yeah, it is. It is.
But
but they can handle it, and I think that's why they're enjoying this. I think that's why they're enjoying this time for the bowl game prep.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it's this rare combination of time to teach and go over concepts. Right, like you have a certain amount of time where you can do two things at once. So I think I do like, and you keep your footprint in Florida too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, that's certainly not a coincidence.
Yeah, and he's used to being in the role from UCF,
mm-hmm.
where you're getting guys, but not the guys of the guys.
Right. That's the UCF bread and butter, right?
Right. So
you're getting the Florida State, Miami, secondhand goods.
Yeah.
I mean, so being honest.
I mean, and there's so many.
Yeah, and that's not to say that they're not great players, but
yeah, it's just there's a definite method to the madness. It's just interesting how, if you ask me on December, what is today, the 16th?
It is the 16th.
How I felt December 16th versus December 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. No, we'll see how it manifests itself in wins. But putting the blueprint together,
mm-hmm.
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, all bias aside, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like you as much as you could for a departure you didn't think was going to happen to the school it did,
mm-hmm.
the way that it did, they've recovered nicely.
Yeah, I sense a much lower level of stress than a couple weeks ago. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We'll be back to wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And I got to tell you, this holiday season, you can make a resolution that you can keep. Take control of your weight loss with help from Midland's Family Urgent Care. They're offering special discounted pricing on weight loss medications that can help you get the results you're looking for. If you're not like DB and you can't just leave food in the microwave after you ordered it for a couple days at a time, I don't have that kind of self-control. So I had to get on the semaglutide. Right now you can get it for $349 for the first 3 months, or the tirzepatide for $599 for the first 3 months. All you got to do, call 402-810-9494 to get an appointment set up with Midland's Family Urgent Care.
Now, in my defense, I haven't felt great.
That's true. You have been having some indigestion, haven't been one to eat a ton.
I'm on, I can't remember what it is, but I'm on day 4. I feel better.
You getting better?
Yeah. So even with AC, like I had seafood, I just had like fish.
Yeah.
I didn't eat any, like.
Are you a big seafood guy?
I love seafood.
Me too. I'm obsessed.
No one else in my house does.
Really?
No.
That's disappointing.
Maybe Mike on a humbug.
Yeah.
But I didn't
like it when I was younger either.
Listen, I have some vacuum sealed cod.
Yeah.
That I would love. I'd eat it today. But I just, you know what I mean? I just feel like.
Yeah.
Can I come over for dinner? I mean, that sounds good.
You like cod?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of struggling. It's nice out today. Originally thought about doing something
like get the grill out.
But man, I don't know. Something is wrong. Definitely wrong with my appetite.
Yeah,
because it just didn't. Like normally burgers brought, oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
it just didn't sound appealing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to be creative.
We'll see what happens.
I know it's a total crapshoot.
I had some scallops over the weekend. I was excited.
So did I, and they were just okay.
No, mine were good.
They were teeny.
Really?
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
You got to get the big old scallops.
Yeah. They were. It was just okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind of.
I love
scallops.
So AC's wife loves scallops too.
They're incredible. Underrated.
They're amazing.
Yeah, they're so good. They're like one of my go-to. I've
told you this before.
Yeah.
Like total. This is morbid because I'm not a criminal anymore. But
anymore.
It's total death row menu.
Yeah, scallops.
Scallops or lamb chops.
Yeah, I'll mess around with some scallops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
so good.
They are.
It's like something I search out on a menu if people have scallops or not. If I'm going someplace nice.
But believe me, I'm with you.
I'm all about it. All about that life.
I wanted to get back real quick to volleyball.
Yeah. Because
Shane, we've confirmed young Jakob for 9:45, right?
He is in.
Or 9:43.
Yep.
I think, and obviously I'm kind of a dork, but and he watches it all the time too, and we've done this for it's 10 years, but for whatever, right? Love volleyball. What Nebraska's doing, I don't know how else to explain this unless I just need like some other volleyball heads to chime in. What Nebraska is doing defensively, and they've always been a good defensive team. So this isn't novel, and this isn't some don't be like soccer guy and come for me.
Yeah.
But with how hard Nebraska plays defensively, with how talented they are, in my opinion, I think this team, it's a little bit rare. They do a lot of little dirty stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't always see that with teams.
With hyper-talented teams.
That are that talented. I'm just, like, they can buy into, I mean, Bergen Riley hitting them. She's minus last night.
Yeah.
This is non-factor.
Yeah.
I heard in the open, Bergen Riley, she's the X factor. I was like, I don't know. Doesn't seem to play well against these guys. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. They haven't needed her so far, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we called Andy Jackson's name like 4 times last night.
Yeah.
You know how good Andy Jackson is?
Really, really good. Really, really good.
It's just Taylor Landfair sat half the season.
Yep.
Right?
Didn't matter.
You just see like Lexi and Lane. They're just flying all over the place defensively. I mean, we thought Nebraska was dominant. They hit 210.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I'm not snubbing my nose at 210, but
feels like you are a little bit, but that's okay.
It was a 3-0 sweep, though. You know why? Because Wisconsin hit 126.
Yeah.
It's just I just was watching it, and I like watching Lexi just because having somebody in the house that knows those guys, and I hear about her personalities, and Harper and Heinrich, and so I just watch temperaments all the time. And I'm balancing the social media versus the practice habits versus what you play and how he's kind of evolved again. Coach Cook, like again, just kind of now he's kind of become, I just don't know if he's all that comfortable, especially with the social media stuff, but it hasn't wavered in like their productivity. It's such a fine line in knowing your team's temperament.
It's kind of funny because I couldn't decide, and we didn't talk.
Check him out with Harper and those guys on TikTok.
Well, that's
crazy.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is I can't decide, and I've thought about this a lot, and we hadn't talked about it at all. Is I can't figure out if I think he is finally like loosening up and getting more comfortable, or if he's just so far out of his comfort zone. But he's doing it for his team.
Maybe he has it in him, but I don't know. I listen to Lauren and their interactions because I'm always listening to the network, and it's like.
But this is not who John Kugler was 5 years ago,
and she's hard on him, and that's his daughter.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like she just says John. Oh, John, why don't you set the middle? It's like whoa.
Easy there, easy.
I don't know what you see, Lo. It's just just kind of this thing. And after you watch the little bit of the volleyball doc, which doesn't even paint the whole picture of Harper and stuff, and you saw their embrace at the end, right? Like you just always get the sense. And she shared a story. This is pretty recent on TikTok where she's like, "Hey, I'm just going to put this out here." And believe me, I'm so over I'm just over the TikTok quick hits for attention. But that's not what I thought this was.
Yeah.
Because she's like, get ready with me, whatever. And she's just kind of talking about the emotional stuff and dealing with social media and how now she like combats it head on. Like she kind of stares it in the face. Like, okay, I can use this for good too. So it disarmed me because normally that's not my style.
Yeah.
So and it's not a Damon thing, right? Sometimes I just have to get over myself. Well, that's not how I would do it, so therefore they must mean this, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's easy for me to think.
Sure.
But I get to put practical application of like people just growing, and I just can't believe how hard he gets them to play.
Yeah.
It's like for as gifted as they are athletically, they lay it on the line constantly.
Yeah, because these are, these are the best of the best in terms of who he's recruiting, right? Like these are not, not to say that they're not a developmental program, but they start off at a pretty high level with the.
Yeah, they're
people,
not a developmental program.
Like with the people
Did you see his walk-off? They did win their. Thank you, Miranda. Penn State did win their first in '99. Thank you. Well, that was
from before.
Yeah, because it was just fresh on my brain too. Because when I was talking to Jacob a couple months ago, and I was like, "Gosh, it'd be very nice to see Nebraska and Penn State." Because when I was in school,
those were the juggernauts.
Penn State was the rival, and Jacob's looking at me like I'm speaking Portuguese. I'm like, "It's mid-'90s, man." It's like I know Penn State's taking some time off, but so 99 stuck out in my head. Appreciate that.
Well, they were talking on the broadcast last night with the Creighton match that they had. Penn State hadn't been to one since 2017, which for them that's a long drought for them. Creighton was trying to be the first Big East team ever to make it, to the Final Four, which would have been a pretty cool deal there. But yeah, it is. You brought up a really good point. I don't know how often people realize how hard it is to get super talented players to play that hard.
It's ask around.
Yeah, it's hard.
And pick a sport.
Anyone. I mean, I'm thinking about basketball. Like just in my head,
it is very, very hard.
Yeah.
To get people to play hard all the time when you're that talented.
Which you want to talk about? We talk about people's superpowers sometimes. You want to nail one thing down? That's Michael Jordan's superpower. For being that talented.
Is it because it was airing? Last Dance was airing this weekend all the time?
Oh no, I didn't watch any of it this weekend.
Yeah,
I have watched it probably 3 or 4 times.
It was all over.
Yeah,
and I didn't think they had. Did they have spots to fill because of didn't have the college football inventory?
Maybe that would make sense. This is about
shoot. I watched FCI.
We got 3 Dakota teams in the Final Four.
Yeah,
for FCS
and shot. Listen, I love. Don't accuse me of being playing favorites because I started. It was an SDSU thing with Coach Dan Jackson, and North Dakota State had all my guys, and they were recruiting all my guys. But shout out to South Dakota because I talked to when we were doing the preview for UNI. I don't know if you remember this guy we were talking to from up there, and we're talking about playing in that conference and the good schools along. Somehow we got into like that corridor. And I'm like, you look at a school like South Dakota because South Dakota was on their schedule, who has found a way, not found a way, but like this coffers of this money that they have and their ability to get good seemingly overnight the last 4 or 5 years, just kind of this slow ascent. Man, shout out to South Dakota.
It seemed like they were always all right.
Yeah, I mean,
and then they took this leap.
And I know Coach Glogowski's doing his own thing at another school, but
yeah,
I used to play against him in high school when he was at Papio, so he was a South Dakota guy, and like they have done work. I used to coach with Nate Carruthers, who's a South Dakota guy.
Yeah, and that's low key
impressive,
not easy.
Impressive
when you've got South Dakota State and North Dakota State already in your backyard playing at that level to catch them. That's That's pretty impressive.
Wagons.
We've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Good. Oh, you sound awful subdued, Sam. Is it is it just because it's a Monday, or your anticipation of this 48-degree weather?
No, I was spraying wash on a stain on a pillow.
Look at you multitasking.
Yeah.
Mr. Domestic.
That's right. Well, when you're responsible for the stain, you probably should be the person who sprays.
The elevated, high-pitched voice, Sam, never disappoints, even when it's just about spray and wash.
We appreciate the personal responsibility.
What is it, like spaghetti? What is it, spaghetti sauce, Sam?
I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. It might have been my son. I think it probably was, but he's an extension of me, and so I clean up his messes.
Yeah, I get it.
When he goes to school.
I get it.
Fair. Sam, we've been talking a lot of volleyball this morning, and we'll get back to that, but wanted to touch on Nebraska basketball real quick here. Coming off of that rough loss to Michigan State, have almost a whole week off, bring Indiana into town, and just kind of take care of business there. What you were expecting, or kind of caught you off guard that Nebraska was able to bounce back the way they did against Indiana?
I thought they would win the game, yeah. So I wasn't surprised by the result. I think, there's things about Nebraska that and maybe this is just true of the Fred Hoiberg era. They have games where they can score, and whether it's getting to the line or making shots or getting things done. I think for the most part, Fred likes his team. I think there's a depth to it that I think he's still working through, because you got so many big guys that you can play that you kind of got to figure out which guy is the right guy for the night. And a lot of the teams they're going to play this year in the Big Ten are just different than they were last year. And obviously 4 of them were in the Big Ten. So, it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error for them in the front court. But, Bryce is consistent, and Connor Esigian, when he gets the ball, is consistent. They need to get him the ball a little bit more often, I think, and get him going earlier in games, or when he comes on the floor, however they want to do it. But, it feels like they got a couple of scorers. It feels like they're figuring out what the front court roles will be. And, you're going to get a solid effort from them almost every night. So it's a tougher league than it was last year. Some of that is because of UCLA and Oregon. I mean, those are good basketball teams with good players. Some of that's because I think Michigan is better. I think, for one thing, I think they have a better coach. And they may, Juwan Howard may have been a better recruiter, but he wasn't a better coach. And I think they got a better coach now. And, it's going to be a competitive league, and Nebraska's going to have to find a way to, what are we thinking here? 10-10. If they go 10-10 in the league, and let's say they win, I don't know, 2 out of 3 in Hawaii, then that's about 18, 19 wins, and that's the bubble. You want to get on the other side of the bubble, you probably got to get to 20 or 21. But you get to 10-10 in the league, and I think that's about what this team is. And if they do better than that, that means they've progressed in some area that's gotten them further along than where they are now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just look at, Illinois has good size. We well documented with Indiana's bigs, even though when they compromised themselves defensively by keeping them both on the floor at the same time. Michigan has their bigs with Golden and Wolf. Like it's a big league with some good bigs. Does that surprise you when you kind of step back and take a look at it? How it's such a guard-driven sport, and it still will be. Don't get me wrong, but it's a big bigs conference.
Yes, this particular league is the one where the post players tend to flourish a little bit more than maybe some of the others, and so. Even though Ron Coltrane plays in the Big East, he would have been at home in the Big Ten. He just would have been in a good spot if he had been in that league. Obviously, Zach Edey set the pace for many years, and I don't know that there's a replacement for Edey, but there are a number of teams that have quality bigs, and Nebraska's going to have to battle a lot. And I think they can. They've got enough bodies. So they've got Morgan and Book and Joe and Mia. And, Juwan Gary's a little undersized, but he can do some things. So, they have enough players down there. I think it's a question of who's the right guy on the right night. And then can you get Bryce Williams and Connor Sejan to do the things they need to do? Because if those two guys are scoring, then I think this is a pretty solid team. It's a league full of big guys. We're going to see more of those guys, obviously, in January and February, and Nebraska's just going to have to play through it and grind. It's probably an 8-bid league. I don't know. I haven't looked at the bracketology today or when it was out there, but I think 8 or 9 bids is very likely. Might be 10 or 11 on the women's side. But I think it's going to be both Big Ten men and women are high-quality leagues.
Talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, let's switch gears to volleyball here. Obviously, a big day in the state yesterday. Nebraska advances the Final Four. Creighton falls in 5 sets to Penn State. Where do you want to start? You want to start with Nebraska and the dominance they've shown this year, or Creighton and their ability to catch up to the best teams in the sport?
Yeah, I think it's too bad that Creighton fell just short. They had a great chance to win that match. I think that's happened to them a couple of different times, even this season, where Creighton has to go on the road to play its toughest matches, and they get to the 5th set. They're playing in front of big crowds, and the 5th set doesn't go the way they want it to go. They just don't play that well, and I think that's part of what happened again last night. Penn State let Creighton a little bit in. They had so many service errors that Creighton had an opportunity, I think, that if Penn State had served it better, may not have had. But, yeah, I think Creighton has maybe the best coach in the country who's been willing to stay there versus going somewhere where she almost certainly would have won a national title by now. Creighton has, I think, 2 5-star players, and they just graduated, basically. Nora Sis and Kendra Waite, they were 5-star players. I think maybe they have one more beyond that, but they're doing that with 2 5-stars. Penn State's got 10. Nebraska's got every player on the roster. So I think every one of them is. And when you have 14 5-stars, you can sit on a folding chair and point at people. They do so much of the work themselves.
Oh, I don't know about that, Sam.
I do.
Listen,
in that sport,
hey,
in a sport,
I get it, but he's made a ton of tough decisions. Well, you can't debate the fact. You're not being serious, right? Like you think like
I'm saying that it's
finding the pin hit.
It's much harder to coach.
Finding like the 5 versus the 6-person rotation, or not having certain players part of the 6-person rotation, or who your pin hitters are, or the effort in which Nebraska plays with. You think like that's sitting on your folding chair?
I would give him incredible credit for the way that he handled the Harper Murray situation.
Tough crowd.
Incredible credit.
Tough crowd.
No, I don't think so. I think, and I'm just being clear that like one coach has to coach harder than the other one does.
Okay.
And if you flipped those rosters and you gave each coach the other roster, I don't know that we would be talking about different results.
I hate that because, and it's not personal to you, Sam. It's just not everybody is built to coach everybody. Like, sure. So the whole giving of the rosters thing, there's only a handful of people I think that could just like, well, you take those. I mean, Brady Hoke famously said, "Hey, I don't need a bunch of 4- and 5-star prima donnas." Right? Like,
well, he's wrong. He got fired.
Okay, Sam. Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, you know who can coach? Kurt Signetti can coach.
Yeah.
That guy can coach. Because what they did this year, Ryan Day didn't do. Now there's things Ryan Day's really good at, which is recruiting, quarterback development, continuing. It's not everybody can do what Ryan Day does, and not everybody can do what John Cook does. John Cook's a great recruiter, and it is not easy to collect all of that talent and get it to play together. So be clear on what you got to do. I'm just saying that, like, once you create the culture and you put it out on the floor, which Nebraska has done, and I give Cook incredible credit for that, you don't have to there's not a lot of – they were able to play, I think, what they would consider a below average match on Friday night and win anyway. And that's because they're really, really good. And they deserve a lot of credit for recruiting Andy Jackson. Andy Jackson was not a 5-star when they recruited him. So they did a nice job of getting her, and that deserves a lot of credit. So it probably comes off sounding too harsh. My point being that I think Booth might be the best coach in the country, but the reality is she doesn't have the NIL money, to buy players that aren't even going to play.
Yeah, she's sensational. There's no question. Like,
why are these players at Nebraska?
She's the real deal. Money. But I'm just saying, you don't have to tear down one to.
No. I'm not tearing anybody down. I think listen, I'm not. I don't think I am. But what I'm saying
that's a tough job.
The reason that one program has incredible institutional support and fan support, and it's just, like they are, they're Kentucky basketball, or what do you want to call it? Kansas basketball. They should be good. And they are good. And they have great talent, and they're going to have more great talent coming in. And there's nothing, and it's unlike basketball. Volleyball is a little bit like tennis in that it's a sport of repetitive athletic movements that resets after every 25 points. The challenge of beating a team as talented in Nebraska is like trying to beat Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic in a 5-set Wimbledon match. The only people that are going to beat Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic are Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. So Nebraska's going to play one of those teams in Penn State. I think Penn State could potentially beat Nebraska. If Nebraska wins that match, I think they'll take out Pitt or Louisville pretty handily. But that's what I mean, is like the sport, when you create an event where somebody can't just beat you over the course of 40 minutes and beat you by one because they had a 12-point lead. It doesn't work that way. Like, it resets after 25 every time. So, like, the challenge of beating Nebraska at this point, with as talented as they are, is really high. And to be clear, I give Nebraska's players a lot of credit. I give Merritt Beeson a lot of credit. I think she's a great leader. And I give credit to players like Ken Dior that decided to stay. And she didn't have to stay. She could have transferred anyway. She didn't do it. Now, some of that is because Nebraska has built an incredible program that makes it easier for these players to stay because, they're getting, great support.
Sam, you're my guy.
I'm always.
I got to go back and get something, man, because I can't. I'm having a hard time dialing in. I really, I just want to be clear. You didn't really compare the coaching exploits of Day to Cook. It was the ability to procure talent. I'm stuck on that.
Sure.
Because if Ryan Day got his team to play as hard relative to Nebraska's volleyball team, he wouldn't be in fear of his job. I'm just saying.
Well, I agree with that. Football's again, one of the things I would say, that comparison piece that's hard is football's a much harder sport to win at that level at. And you know that.
Okay.
You know that.
Yeah, I
we're talking about how
I was getting palpitations, and I'm like,
I didn't take it as
my tummy's not sitting
well. I didn't take it as a direct comparison between Cook and Day.
No, I could talk about this all day. I really could.
I could tell because I know you've given this some thought.
The dynamic in the sport of volleyball. There's a reason why 4 number 1 seeds are in the Final Four. It's very, very, and we're going to see the sport reset next year because the COVID year is going to be gone. Pittsburgh's best player, I think, has been there for 6 years, and we're going to see the sport reset a little bit, and I think you're going to see more parity come in. Obviously, Nebraska's going to have to figure some things out, all the rest. But no, I mean, I think Cook's a Hall of Fame coach, maybe, the best coach of all time. But on top of that, John Wooden was the best coach of all time, right? In basketball.
At a time, yeah.
John Wooden could sit on the bench. He could. He had Kareem.
Yeah, I don't know.
These things help.
Sam,
one of the things that always happens in college sports, we do this all the time, where we put a lot of it on the coaches, and I get it. But I'm a big believer in the players doing a lot, having a lot to do with the level of success. I would just say again that what Booth has been able to accomplish at Creighton, let's make it positive. What she's been able to accomplish at Creighton is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, she's sensational.
Because they don't have any of the institutional, they don't have the kind of money, they're in a league that doesn't help them to get better. I mean, they're not sharpening iron. I don't think a Big East team has ever been to the Final Four. And so what she's been able to accomplish with 2 5-stars, who are, again, great players and now leaving, is just pretty amazing. And again, you feel for her a little bit because she can coach as well as she can coach. And at the end of the day, Penn State's got a couple of players that are just amazing.
Yeah. Sam,
and
go ahead.
And that's been true of Nebraska too. Nebraska's never lost to Creighton. And I would say that isn't because Booth isn't as good of a coach. I think that's because Nebraska has better players. And it is about the athletes a lot of the time.
Sam, so in your tennis analogy, not just because they're both from Omaha, but does that make Creighton Andy Roddick in this scenario?
Sort of. I mean, Andy Roddick in a different era would have won 7 majors.
Yeah, I agree. Actually,
if he had played in the
if he had played in the 90s, like 80s and 90s,
shut the front door.
100%.
7 majors.
Maybe not 7, but he would have won multiple.
Well,
he would have won multiple.
I got to go by what you said. You nodded in affirmation that he'd win 7. No, he wouldn't. That's ludicrous.
7 strong.
My number's 4 or 5. I think he won.
Just say he would have won more. I agree. I'm like, what?
I agree. He would have won multiple majors if he wasn't playing with.
He would have won more. Okay, I get it.
7 is high.
See what you did this morning, Sam.
7 is high, but Mats Wilander, who no one knows who that is. He won 3 in 1 year in the 1980s. Nobody even knows who Mats Wilander is, but he did.
He definitely would have won a couple Wimbledons. He definitely would have won a couple.
Great hair,
and at least another U.S. Open.
This is what I mean. Is it I would say this: if Wimbledon was 3 sets, he would have won more.
Yes, 100%.
It's just so hard.
Okay, what's Michael Chang doing in 2024? Not a damn thing. It's all relative.
He still plays on those senior tours. I went and watched him a couple of years.
So
anyway,
Michael Chang underrated.
The point of the segment is. I don't need to. So many people. Well, I mean, John Cook's a Hall of Fame coach. He's a legend. What I would say is that the gift that guy has at this point is he assembles the best team in college volleyball. Now, that in and of itself is a challenge. But, that's when they walk on the court, they should win. And they do. And now the one team that I think can take them all the way to the limit, because I put this on Twitter last night. There's one team that I think can actually take Nebraska to the limit, and that's Penn State, because they have just about as much talent, including 2 players that left Nebraska who could have started at Nebraska that are on their team, and Penn State's really, really good. They're one of the blue bloods.
Sam, you don't
they're
think
the one team that could potentially beat Nebraska.
You don't think Pitt's best? You don't think their player of the year is their best player? Because she's just a sophomore.
One of their best players has been there for 6 years. That's my point.
Okay. Yeah. So Olivia Babcock.
And again, you're
really,
going to
really good. She's a pop.
This is my opinion. If Pittsburgh makes the final and Nebraska makes the final, I will take Nebraska every day of the week, because I don't think Pittsburgh is going to. A, Nebraska has hammered Pittsburgh in the Final Four, and B, I don't think Pittsburgh will be ready for that moment.
That's interesting because Pitt's the favorite.
I just don't.
I was just telling that to Ravi in the first segment. They're the. It's close.
They're the best. They're the most statistically impressive team. But when you think about mental toughness and readiness. Nebraska's been there twice in the last 4 years, and Pitt hasn't. So I would say that Nebraska-Penn State is probably for the national title, but we'll see. And I think Nebraska's going to beat Penn State, and if they do that, then I think they'll win the national title. Again, like I think it's a fascinating story. So I find Cook to be a fascinating figure who's well covered in this state. I think Booth doesn't get as much attention because her teams don't make the Final Four, but I think I would give her a lot of credit for staying at Creighton. And the idea that she couldn't take a team of 5 stars and win a national title, I think she probably could.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you something, because we're all taking truth serum this morning. Is Nebraska's staff, football wise, better on paper on December 16th than it was on November 16th?
So these are just all the defensive coaches.
Well, and Shorts.
You have Shorts and Holgerson.
Being
let's
official.
let's go to October 16th.
Yeah, so pre-Holgerson.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Shane, what's the James Bond? What's the movie Skyfall? So, 2 weeks ago, we thought this was like James Bond.
We've gone everywhere
right?
today.
Like the sky was falling. And deadpan, straight face, Nebraska may have a better staff on paper on December 16th.
Yeah, I didn't think the sky was falling 2 weeks ago.
No, I know. You were very matter of fact too, which I could appreciate.
Yeah, I think Holgerson's a huge ad for sure. And so that was a big deal. I think that side of the ball really needed to be addressed and resolved. The second thing that I think is that, the defensive coaching staff, Tony White did a great job here. And so you don't want to necessarily say, well, they're just going to do whatever. But
no, he was fantastic.
Butler's a good replacement. The defensive backs coach appears to be Addison Williams. I think he's got a lot of experience, and listened to a couple of his interviews yesterday, and he loves the game and tends to love his guys. And then I do think the defensive line coach is appears to be a very good hire. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know that much about that guy. But I think he'll probably be a very good recruiter. And, again, anybody who's affiliated with coaching, Chris Jones, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's an all-timer. He's a great, great player. Is anytime you can say, I've spent the last X number of years with maybe the best interior defensive lineman not named Aaron Donald, that's going to be immediate credibility. And he's going to be able to show teaching tape to these guys that very few people have. So, I do think their staff's gotten better. John Cook's a great coach. Let me remind you of that. I don't want anybody to get it misunderstood.
Sam, we appreciate it as always.
You, Sam.
I just compared him to John Wooden. So there you go.
You also compared him to Ryan Day. No.
Oh, be quiet. 7 titles,
Sam.
Ravi.
Listen, anti-erotic goat. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and it's time once again for the 2025 Omaha Supernovas season. They're coming off the first ever professional volleyball championship here in Omaha, and their season starts on Friday, January 10th here at CHI Health Center against the Atlanta Vibe. They'll be raising the banner on that championship, so make sure you come check it out. Head over to supernovas.com for tickets. DB, I'm just looking up some tennis major titles over here for no reason at all during the break. I think seven's okay. I think seven's okay for Andy Roddick. It's my guy.
Unbelievable.
You don't think he could be
my favorite thing about that whole discussion, this is coming from a tennis nerd, and
Yeah.
I know you're one too.
Yeah.
You said that as though Roddick wasn't perceived as one of the most talented of his era. He absolutely was. It wasn't a talent thing with Roddick.
Yeah, he ran into the wrong guy.
You said 7, like.
I think 5. I think 5's the number I would land on.
God, that was just like an hour of odd takes.
I would 5's a little. I would disagree on the John Cook stuff. I would disagree there. I agree that his job is different now than it used to be.
Listen, I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
As a guy that's coached at Burke when they were 1-8, Northwest we were winless, North played in however long, at Westside played in however long. Coaching high-end guys or perceived high-end guys versus guys that can't play dead. It's not the same,
right?
But there are some that can do it all.
Yes.
So
I got what you were saying.
The delineation.
Yeah, I got what you were saying.
I was like, whoa, hold on.
We saw this in Omaha. We have a very good example of this in Omaha.
I just watched it watched it play Michigan.
Yeah.
That guy had a lot of good players at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I have to go back and make sure that I just wasn't like in the moment and couldn't move on.
I didn't think he was directly comparing John Cook to Ryan Day. That's not how I took it.
And I moved on from that. I wanted to make sure. Like, I got clarity on that.
I do think that maybe Sam was a little dismissive of the job that John Cook is doing. Where I think I'm gonna try and be you here. I'm gonna try and eat the meat and spit out the bones. Okay. So what I do think is accurate is I think John Cook's job is a lot different than it used to be. Like his job has turned into something that it wasn't always in terms of how he has to run this program and how he has to coach. I think that's true. I think it's different than it was when he took over.
What I don't like is I think you can talk about individuals on their own merit.
Yes.
If somebody needs a comp, then I could add a comp.
Yeah.
But I'm not big into it's like the dude that, like, when he wants to talk to your girl will tell you what the other dude isn't.
Yeah.
Don't be that dude.
I agree with him that Coach
Just
Booth
go get the girl.
might be one of the best coaches in the country. Or not might be, is one of the best coaches in the country.
There's like
zero question. That's I think a more difficult job than people realize for a lot of the reasons Sam laid out.
But I do think it is a very, very it's quite the leap, the assumption that any coach can just coach any level of player without all that comes with it.
100%. I agree with you there.
Not every coach is built to handle Krause and Landfair and Bergen Riley or Alec and her set rotations, or who's playing in the middle back, or built to handle Harper. Like, we undersell the ability to make really tough decisions and not have it disrupt chemistry or those people's persona.
Yeah.
I've seen this all the time. Like, I don't know. It's like, you want the easiest way to say it?
What's that?
Not everybody can be a Steeler.
Sure.
You just can't.
Yeah, it's not a good culture fit. Or whatever. Yeah.
He's not going to be for everybody. Kirk Ferentz is not going to be for everybody.
Well,
right?
you've said this before. Iowa doesn't put out a lot of offers because of that.
Yeah.
Right? They're very selective.
Yeah. And I know you guys just think, well, you just champion Iowa. That's not what it is. I'm a big fan of identifying strengths and playing to them.
Joel brings up a good point here on Twitter.
Which Joel, the marriage? Mayor or Joe M?
Mayor. Mayor Joel. He says the real genius of Cook is not being afraid to make really, really hard coaching decisions and not allowing it to destroy team chemistry and dynamics. I think that's part of what you're talking about here with the hard decisions that Cook's had to make kind of throughout the last few years probably more several years when the dynamics of his job has changed a little bit. And I do think that's a good point, because one of the challenges, I mean, we see this in basketball all the time. We see it in football with the transfer portal and everything. And transfers have been a thing in volleyball for way longer than they have
100%
everything else. Like, that's.
Did you listen to
transfer portals?
Did you listen to every good player that was talked about over the?
Well, they started here and now they're there. And like, the transfer portal's old hat in volleyball. Yeah. This is just what it's been.
Just like wrestling, it's
baseball has been the same way for a long time. Like, this is just what it is, right? But especially in this era where you see in like college basketball, for instance, or college football, where people like 5 stars get upset and they leave and it destroys team chemistry and everything. I will say, being able to have everybody on that team.
Some people just don't want that drama. You know who doesn't want that drama?
Who?
Mac.
Yeah.
Mac.
Yeah.
But Larry Johnson's not at Creighton because Mac is at a point in his career where he's just not going to.
He's not going to deal with it.
He's just not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
Well, and we saw this.
So this is totally the coaching.
Yeah.
Because I've had to coach guys that didn't know that you put your inserts in your knee pads from the inside, or you could wear a girdle and put pants over and still be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also tell you that I've got to be able to talk to a guy like Christian Jones and tell him the difference between getting from the face of number 2 to number 1 is getting underneath and snapping your head, where you can short stride it and let his tempo control your speed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a lot of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
He knows exactly what I mean.
Well, it's
but
a large range from
but I couldn't say that some other times, right? So I get very, very, very excited when people just act like, give me their players and I'll win. Because I guarantee you,
it's not that easy.
And most coaches can't.
Yeah.
They can't. They need certain types of guys to play certain types of ways.
Mm-hmm. I would argue the same thing about Coach Rule, that there's some nonsense he's just not here for.
But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying that, well, don't just say, well, give them 5 stars or give them 4 stars. Like, don't do that. Because I think Harper Murray she's going to have to probably fight Lexi Rodriguez for, regional MVP. But Harper Murray doesn't get to the last 5 days without Cook's ability to manage people.
100%.
That's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just be like, hey, do you know how hard it is to get the best out of people?
And that's
just on the daily.
Yes.
Do you know how hard it is to get the best out of people?
Yes.
Just to get people to maximize and be the best version of themselves. It's incredibly difficult. Most of us can't do it on our own.
Yeah. To ourselves.
Okay?
Yeah.
Can't do it on our own with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole let's just flip sides. Okay. That means you have to deal with how we got them there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That guy could play for you. He wouldn't make it in our program. He's tried. He tried to come here. He's a great player. He couldn't work here.
Yeah.
So like I'm very sensitive to that. Because it's not that cut and dry.
No, and I do think there's something to the fact that there's like all of it's part of the job, right? So we can say, this is the thing I push back on Calipari all the time. I know a lot of people that don't think John Calipari is a very good basketball coach. And if you're going to talk about
it starts with you.
Not me. I'm not anti-Calipari.
You just tell me that he's not very good at coaching offense.
I think
we've had lots of
I think his offense is very simplistic.
We've had lots of conversations about Cal. I don't think you put him in your pantheon of coaching wizards.
No, I wouldn't. But there's some people that are just like, this guy can't coach. But all the things he's good at, that's part of the job too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you weren't setting yourself apart from the criticism, because we've had very intense conversations on Cal's prowess.
I have criticisms about Cal's actual basketball X's and O's prowess for sure. But all the other stuff that he's good at is still part of the job, and he's good at it, right? You can't just throw out, he's not great at the basketball X's and O's, but he still gets really good players that a lot of other people can't get. He's really good at managing those personalities that a lot of other people can't do. He's pretty good at a lot of the other stuff. So, yeah, it looks bad when the offense bogs down and he can't get a look with all these 5 stars, but getting the 5 stars on the court, that counts too. Like, that's part of the job too. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. You all right over there?
Man,
you doing okay?
I appreciate your attention to not being distracted by my nonsense.
Oh, I'm trying. You look like you look a little concerned. I just want to make sure you're all right.
I am. I'm glad you care.
I do care.
My man Short Side Option chimes in. I always read his stuff.
I know you don't think I do, but I do care.
Yeah. Oh man, hey, I do need you to do something for me.
What's that?
I need you to ask your guys why they posted all that stuff on their on Jaipur posted all that on their Facebook page.
How are they my guys? I told you not to go there.
I love the place is great, but they took a few liberties.
I'm sure it's fine.
My man Short Side Option said, but this,
I've never been to the Midtown one.
It's beautiful. It's clean too.
What Short Side Option say?
He said this applies to Frost coaching here versus UCF too. No?
Yeah, they're different jobs for sure.
Same person though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
No, I understand your premise. I understand your issue with what Sam said. I totally get that. This is an issue I have with Phil.
And I can say that, and I of the three of us in this room, who's the biggest Booth fan?
Probably you.
Right.
Yeah. This is the argument I have with people about Phil Jackson all the time.
I know
the time.
Listen, I wanted to fight you literally
all
over
the
this.
time.
It was the worst take I've ever heard.
He is obviously, for what was needed from him, one of the best coaches of all time. He's one of the best coaches of all time. I don't know if other situations he would have been nearly as successful.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there's certain things in what he does as a coach that wouldn't have worked. Like his strengths as a coach wouldn't have been useful other places. Right? That's my real issue when people I don't look at him as a entirely well-rounded. He's great at every single thing as a coach, which there's not very many.
Yeah, because
to be fair.
So now you're just I see what you just did. You used an extreme, so I couldn't hold you to it. I'm not saying you. Very few coaches are great at every single thing. Right. So you say that to let you off the hook. What you told me was, and what you want me to believe, is that Phil Jackson's coaching prowess is overrated.
I think the X's and O's prowess is overrated, yes.
Okay.
I don't think his coaching prowess is overrated because I include the personality management and all the other things. Because let's be real, there's not very many people that would have been very good at dealing with Michael Jordan. That would have been good at dealing with. Like, let's not underestimate how difficult Scottie Pippen was.
Yeah, I get you.
Like, that was not an easy guy to deal with. He refused to check into a playoff game.
Right.
Like, that is, and somehow was still useful to the team after that.
He pulled a Devondre Campbell.
Yeah, except for he was actually going to play for that team later, and Devondre Campbell may never play again. Right? Like, that's
nothing like career suicide.
Underrated, challenging thing to deal with. Let's not pretend like there's very many coaches on the planet that could have dealt with Shaq and Kobe. Like, that's not an easy dynamic to deal with.
I just think that's part of it.
It is part of it. That's why I give him credit. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Phil Jackson's the best X's and O's coach I've ever seen in my life either. But the greatest X's and O's coach in the world probably wouldn't have been that useful to Shaq and Kobe and to Michael and Scottie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the point. You could put Phil Jackson somewhere else. He may not win one title. You put someone else with those four guys, and they may not win more than one either. Right? Like, that's sort of the point we're making here about, like, skill sets for the job.
Or what you value, right? Do you like a guy that can coach a marginal guy up, or a guy that can make a great player play hard all that? Like, what do you like?
Would Bill Snyder have been good at Alabama or Texas? I don't know. Because Bill Snyder was great at a marginal player, right? He built Kansas State off of marginal players. Would he have been any good out of Texas or an Alabama or an Ohio State? I don't know.
Do you have a good comp of a guy that's managed or gal that's managed low-level and high-level talent?
That's gone from
low-level to high-level?
Probably not at the same place. I'm trying to think of somebody that's gone through. I mean,
I know who you want to say.
Who?
But it's not low-level. It's lower.
Who?
I thought you may use Coach Osborne.
Oh, that's a fair one. I still think that
because people kind of tell the story like he didn't have good players. He had good players.
He did elevate the recruiting at a certain point, but
But I love Vers's point the other day about, like, Wistrom was a first-round draft pick, but Wistrom will tell you that he wasn't going to be a first-round draft pick at every school he went to.
Sure, 100%. I said this about Doug McDermott. Doug McDermott, if he had ended up going to play for Greg at Iowa State, does not have the same career that he has at Creighton. Or if he had been recruited at a high major the way he was in high school, probably doesn't end up having the same career that he did at Creighton.
Yeah.
Like, some guys need to go certain places. Baylor Shireman's a great example of this. Does Baylor Shireman turn into Baylor Shireman if he doesn't go to South Dakota State first? Like, what if he gets the attention he wanted out of high school?
I'm 100% with you.
You know? There's a lot of guys like that.
I guess I can't. I just hate the.
It's not an apples to apples comparison almost ever.
Or the you give me your players thing.
Yeah.
Because I would. It's just not that.
No. It's not. It's a different job. It's a different job to coach certain types of players. The guy I wanted to bring up with Sam that we didn't get to, we saw this in real time with Dana Altman at Creighton.
Oh yeah, 100. That's a good pull.
Like, Dana Altman went from
that's a good pull.
Marginal guys that he got the absolute most out of.
Good pull.
And then after he came back from Arkansas, he recruited at a much higher level, and Creighton never replicated the success they had.
How many of the comps that you and Maddie gave me after my Larry Johnson comp were in Altman's era?
Ooh,
that's funny. Joel said he texted me Altman.
Did he?
Yeah, that's
the first guy I think of when you talk about different types of coaching styles versus different players. Nevin Johnson was an Altman guy.
So P. Allen was Altman.
Brooks wasn't. Brooks was Mac.
Yeah.
There were a couple other Altman guys that I was thinking of. I don't think they lasted very long, though.
He did get Buford to the league, so I didn't count. I did not count Buford.
Isaac Miles, he was a really good ball player, ended up at Murray State, ended up being really good at Murray State. He was a nice guy a nice player that only lasted a year at Creighton. There was a kid from Missouri that lasted for like 8 games at Creighton, and I can't remember his name. He was a power forward. Ty Morrison.
Were you surprised that Larry Johnson just kind of left and it was just like it was relatively quiet?
The timing of it I was surprised by, but I mean, there's been some writing on the wall for a while that this wasn't going well.
Right.
So I guess I wasn't surprised that he's gone. I am maybe a little surprised that people didn't make a bigger deal of it, but with so much going on with Nebraska football and volleyball and everything like that, it's kind of a good time for it.
Yeah. I would agree.
It's sort of a news dump situation there. People are more excited about the new defensive backs coach at Nebraska than they are about Larry Johnson, a guy that's never played at Creighton, leaving.
So I'm having this, it's not even spirited. I'm just talking about, Urban Meyer.
Oh, Urban's a good
Bowling Green.
Okay. Even Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good poll.
So I don't want to ask a leading question.
Okay.
But this was in response to my question about asking Sam if on paper, right, the resumes that you see on the staff now from December 16th versus October 16th.
Mm-hmm.
When they were first hired.
So that's important.
Who has the better resume?
Okay.
For their job? Tony White or John Butler?
I would say John Butler. I could understand an argument of Tony White's been a college coordinator more recently. I like that better.
It's debatable?
At the very least, it's debatable.
Is it debatable?
It's at the very least debatable, yes.
Are you just saying that?
No, I mean, my answer would be...
Because I want to know if it is. Because I'm truly seeking input.
My real answer, my honest answer is Butler, but I think it's Butler towards debatable, not anything less than that. Because Butler's resume is incredible. Butler's resume is really good.
So that's kind of my point, but I'm willing to hear this from
it's hard to wash away what we've seen the last 2 years from Nebraska's defense.
That's the thing.
Yeah. But if you want to go to when they were hired, then I think if you put blind resumes, let's do the NCAA tournament, right? Blind resumes side by side, I think a lot of people would have taken Butler's resume.
So this was the conversation between my friend and I.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you think Butler's resume is better than White's? I said, wow, you don't? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I probably shouldn't have answered that way because that's leading.
Mm-hmm.
But he's smart enough to think for himself. He said, I think Butler is a very good position coach. As a DC, no, I don't. How many guys in the business get their first real crack at DC at 51? See, that I didn't read that at first. That's a narrative that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because when's a good time? So when should Dabo have gone from high school to college?
What age?
Yeah,
earlier than he did.
Or like there's this is, or I could use Paul. There's so many. So
how old? I mean,
should I hold it against Cignetti that he's in his 60s?
So that was the example I was going to use. This is Cignetti's first real shot at being a big time head coach.
So I don't really do that. Is that the one thing that we're going to hold against him, or is that just this particular
against Butler?
friend?
I've heard it held against him before.
Okay,
but let's not pretend like he wasn't a DC at Penn State 10 years ago, and probably could have continued to be if he didn't follow Bill O'Brien to the NFL. Right, like we're going to pretend like that didn't matter.
Is that a hot take that it's better resumes on the 16th?
I think on the first blush, it's a hot take, but I don't actually think it is. We've got Kevin Kugler coming up next.
We will be back. back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Mason Miller, he's going to dribble it out, and history repeats itself for the second straight year. Number one goes down in Omaha.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Kevin Kugler, who does play-by-play for, I think, literally everything. Have they made that official, Kevin? Have they named you just the play-by-play guy for every single sporting event yet?
I hope not. I mean, I can only do so much. You know, I gotta manage all the sporting events that I call play-by-play for. I gotta call Damon every morning and say, all right, Damon, here's the hot take that you need this day on this. Here's the thoughts you should offer on Caitlin Clark today, Damon. I mean, it's not an easy task that I have, but so hopefully I'm not doing everything, Ravi. I mean, it's enough to manage the life of Damon. It's enough to manage the life of so many others, plus call these games.
So it is interesting. I think the hardest part about having you on is like what to talk about, because we could just tell jokes, we could talk history, we could talk sports, we could talk. It's just narrowing it down is part of it. Like you got to feel pretty good. At least you're not pigeonholed.
Well, I mean, I guess I have that going for me, which is nice. I mean, it feels like what is the phrase? Damning with faint praise. I mean, it kind of feels like that a little bit. I mean,
so how many miles have you knocked out? Because you're in Vegas, right?
I'm in Vegas. Yes. Yesterday we were in Tennessee, watching the Bengals try to figure out if there's any path for them to get to the playoffs, and seeing if they can salvage something out of what's been a remarkable season for Joe Burrow. And then hopped on a short little 4-hour-plus flight to Vegas last night. I'm here in Vegas, and tomorrow and Wednesday I'll be in LA to see UCLA and USC basketball, playing their non-conference slate, and then and then who knows where I'll be after that. I really don't know. I wish I could tell you where I'll be after that, but we don't have our assignment yet for Sunday, so could be anywhere. Could be at home. I don't know.
Hey, so this is interesting. Can I ask you something? You know me, I'm a big press conference guy. When you listen to Burrow and you're doing your prep and you're watching him and you're seeing these games unfold, does he play anything like the person that you hear when you pit the two, like against or with each other?
He is one of the most fascinating, and I do say this with all seriousness, he's one of the more fascinating players in the National Football League. Like, you know his background very well. And for those that don't, obviously he's a coach's kid. He grew up riding his bike on the field at Memorial Stadium. People may not know this. He at one point would have had interest in coming to Nebraska. It's something you might want to bring up on a message board or perhaps on the social media channels. Yeah, he had some interest in that. Didn't get the opportunity to. But he is what's really interesting about him is that he is an introvert, a very big introvert. And if you know introverted people, that's a difficult tightrope to walk when you are in a position that demands a certain amount of exuberance and a certain amount of leadership. And sometimes being an introvert, it's hard to lead a large group of people in the public eye. And I really do think there are times where Joe is trying to juggle the notion of, I just want to play ball and I just want to be with my guys on the field, versus the demands that position has. Nobody's feeling sorry for him, and I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for him. It's just a really interesting thing about Joe Burrow, and we've gotten the chance to talk with him several times over the last several years in covering his games. I really like him. He's a really thoughtful, likable, confident individual. I mean, he is extremely confident in his abilities. He should be, because he's a tremendous quarterback. But he is also an introverted personality. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic when it comes to quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes does not strike me as an introvert. Josh Allen does not strike me as an introvert. Joe Burrow is an introvert. And I think when you look at him through that lens, it gives you a little different look at Joe Burrow. He's a really interesting kid.
It's funny because in any other year, he'd be a serious MVP candidate.
No doubt. His numbers are off. Yeah. And yesterday was not one of his best games, but his numbers are off the charts. He is having historically good an historically good season with a wide receiver who's also having a historically good season. That offense is ridiculously good. Their defense is starting to figure it out a little bit, but it could be the competition they played the last couple of weeks too.
Yeah, it could be a too little, too late situation for him as well.
Yeah.
Kevin, it's fascinating that you brought up the confidence of Joe Burrow, because when you said he was an introvert at first, I'm like, that doesn't quite seem right. But it's because he's so confident. I don't think people would immediately think, oh, Joe Burrow introverted, because you see confident people and you assume, oh, they're easygoing, they're outgoing, whatever. Like that's kind of noodling around in my head a little bit there. You're messing with my brain here, Kevin.
Yeah, and the thing about an introvert is it's easier sometimes for the introvert to put on that face for a while publicly and kind of cover it up without really giving a whole lot away. And I think he's become pretty good at that. He's just one of those dudes. And I think we've all known people like this in our lives who are, if you just said to them, all you've got to do is go do blah, whatever blah is that makes you happy. For Damon, it's probably, watching random tape of games. I mean, if you could say to Damon, you're going to sit in this dark room, there'll be a recliner and a TV and a clicker, and you can watch random tape for 19 hours a day, and you don't have to do anything else. Damon would probably be like, this is the greatest moment of my life. And do I have to leave a radius of about 4 blocks? No, you do not. 100%. And when you do leave, someone will show up at your door and pick you up to take you where you need to go. That would be the ultimate dream for Damon Benning. Well, for Joe Burrow, I think it's, if you could just put him on the field and play ball, practice, be with his guys, I think that's all he wants. He's just a football dude. He told us this week he had moved 4 times when he was a kid because, you're a coach's kid. And football and sports was always the way that he made friends. And so you become a little bit of an introvert when you're always hopping around from place to place sometimes. And that was his entry. That was the way that he got in to whatever school he was in. And so now he's an adult. But what's his path in? Well, his path in is still sports.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were mentioning his wide receiver and all these rumors, and Chase could wind up a Steeler and he's their top target. I'm like, who is he going to catch passes from? It's like Burrow. But anyway, it makes me think of caps and money. And I won't even get into baseball yet because you're not there yet. But let's just take NFL, college basketball, and college football. 3 things right dab smack that you're rotating through now. Of those 3, which one does money, or i.e. cap space, or i.e. NIL, affect the most?
Boy, I have to say right now, I think college football.
Isn't it crazy how you didn't pick your pro sport?
But and here's why. Here's the reason why. Because in pro sports, there are rules, guidelines, restrictions, guardrails, none of which seem to exist right now in the landscape of college athletics. It's the Wild West of here's some money, go get it. Nobody has a contract. Nobody is required to stay anywhere. There has to be some sort of middle ground. I love the fact that players have freedom. I love the fact that players have the opportunity to seek out what's best for them. I do. I think that's a great thing. But I also don't think it's good for the sport and the long-term sustainability of the sport and, of course, the long-term sustainability of the money that these guys are seeking if you don't have some sort of restrictions, guardrails, contractual obligations that require this person to stay in one place for a significant amount of time. Not to mention the whole nonsense that we have going on right now of the transfer portal open before the season ends. And this is absurd. All of this is absurd right now. It saps my love in some ways for the college game because it's just so chaotic. Give me a little bit of order, just a little bit. I don't need a lot. I like chaos. Chaos is fun. But give me a little bit of order so that as a fan, when I walk into the building, I at least have an inkling as to who might be putting on the jersey of my favorite team that day.
We're talking with Kevin Kugler, play-by-play voice of everybody. Kevin, as you kind of sit through the NFL and some of these franchises, I know you're in Vegas tonight, which I'm sure will be a super fun game. I hope it is for you. But there was a few teams that played yesterday that I'm looking at and I go, I'm trying to figure out who's actually good. And we've seen Denver look really bad and really good. We've seen Tampa look really bad and really good. And then the other 3 I'm going to give you are Houston, Baltimore, and Green Bay. If you had to pick one team out of those 5 that you actually believe is good, who would it be?
I would probably lean Green Bay, only because I think what Green Bay has done is they've tested themselves against the best. They've struggled against the 2 lost teams because I really do think there's a hierarchy this year in the NFL. I think you're looking at some really, really good teams. I think the Bills are a really good team. I think the Chiefs are a flawed team that knows how to win, which is, I think, a really underrated characteristic. So they're very good, depending on the health of Patrick Mahomes. I think that the Steelers are solid. I think the Texans are solid. I think the Eagles are really good. I think the Lions are really good. I think the Vikings are good to really good, and I think the Packers are probably in that category as well. The problem that I have with the Packers is people have forgotten at the beginning of the year that Jordan Love was so dinged up, and it took him forever to get back and feel healthy to where he can do everything he needs to do. Now that he can, and I think this team's about to get a little healthier as well, I like this Packers team. I don't know that I like this Packers team as a world champion, but of the teams you mentioned, that's probably the one I lean most to saying is good.
Yeah, let me jump over to college basketball. No, let me go to college football first. As you're kind of looking at this, well, it's your fault. Don't be talented.
Hey, I will go wherever you want me to go.
Well, if you said it like,
if you want to dive into whatever, dive into Damon Benning's, weirdness. We can do that too. Whatever.
No, you
We
know
wanna
that
talk
all
about
too well.
Shane.
That's
It
the
doesn't matter to me.
That's the problem. Let's go, baby. I want. Wow. So, which sport did I land on?
College football. Yeah.
Kevin,
as
you're
talking
kind
about your weirdness with food. Got it. Okay, go.
As you're watching like these playoffs play out, and we're going to start on the 20th, and the bowl tie-ins. Was there any of this part of you, because you're all over the place, you talk to these coaches, you know what they're dealing with. Was it just a foregone conclusion that you weren't going to get any uniformity in the conferences before, they rang the bell and it was dinner time? Or were there coaches that were wanting uniformity before we got to expansion?
I think there are coaches that want uniformity. Coaches love to know what is going on. Coaches like to have order, and coaches want to have an idea as to what's happening. I mean, you're a coach. Yeah. You have a specific order of things that you like to do. You have a specific way that you like to do things. I've not met too many head coaches that are like, I don't know, let's just see what happens. I mean, there are a lot of coaches have plans. They have detailed and organized schedules every day. And I think that extends to beyond just their individual day-to-day schedule. I think they wanted to see something before we just sort of went, here we go. I think they wanted to see a little more order. But again, that's the problem with college athletics right now, is that we are lacking anything that resembles top-down leadership. There's nobody that's got control over any of this stuff. Coaches have told me this for years now. They spent most of their lives trying to keep agents out of the game, and now they have given the game to agents. So you spent most of your time working to keep this thing separate from that, and now all of a sudden that is all that's running the sport. And that, again, it's not sustainable. Any of this, the way it is right now, is not a sustainable model. It is working in the short term, but it's not going to be working like this. There's no scenario that it hasn't gone through massive change in the next 5 to 10 years. No scenario.
Kevin, so, I mean, how do you get the genie back in the bottle then?
You don't. The genie's out. The genie is gone. You just have to figure out a way to use the 3 wishes that you have to try to bend the genie your direction. That's the only way that this works. The genie is gone. You rubbed the lamp. You wanted this. You rubbed the lamp. You said, we need massive change in college athletics. We need this. We need that. We need this. We need that. And you rubbed that lamp, and the genie popped out, and the genie said, look at this. Here we go. Now you've got to find somebody else to rub the lamp and get their 3 wishes, because the only way you can figure out how to rein this in is by having some sort of guardrails, having some sort of plan to control it a little bit more. It's not going back to the way it was. It's not going to, the genie doesn't go back in the bottle. The genie just modifies the current landscape to try to make it something that's more sustainable. It's going to end up looking like a nice amalgamation of collegiate professionalism. And that's the only thing that you're going to be able to muster out of this in some way, shape, or form. Is college athletics is going to have a very pro feel, but you're going to have some of the pro guardrails that exist in every professional sport. No professional sport would run themselves the way college athletics is running themselves right now. They just would not, because no one would want to be owning or investing in those professional businesses, those professional teams, without any sort of rules and regulations. And right now you just don't have that. So you've got to get that in place, which you should have done before you rubbed the lamp in the first place.
Antitrust would have happened first. But okay, so before I get into basketball, let me ask you one more thing about football, because I see it a little bit with hoops. Is there a place? The 4 teams that I liked weren't talent-led in the playoffs. I went with the teams that I felt like were a combination of the most talented and had the best chemistry, and that was Penn State, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Georgia, even in the world of transactions. Is there a place for that in athletics, even amongst the top, where you think, well, it's still going to boil down to the teams that get along isn't the right word, but seem to be the most cohesive as a unit, even amongst the elite talented?
I think it's the coaches that are able to blend it the quickest. And sometimes I think that's going to be luck, right? I mean, you're bringing in however many players from a transfer portal, blending them with freshmen, if you're still trying to build through the freshman route, which I think you're going to start to see some schools say, you know what, maybe we'll just bring 4 or 5 freshmen and we'll just refresh in the transfer portal every year. I don't know. But you look at the teams that are able to blend quicker. I think Arizona State's done a really good job, for example, of a team that has blended a program quickly under a head coach to turn into a quick playoff team. Indiana's a different example. They brought in so many guys who had already had history together. Yeah. So that's another way to blend quickly. You have
that's the cohesive part.
That's the cohesive part of it. You're already cohesive. You've been through the grind before. You built kind of the old-fashioned way, and then you picked up your house and you moved it to a different neighborhood, maybe a better neighborhood. I don't know, but you moved it to a different neighborhood. But your house was still your house. You still knew where the bathroom was. You didn't have to remember where you put that thing in the drawer because it's still in the drawer. So you had that cohesiveness there. I think, to me, it's the coaches that are able to blend that the quickest in years forward that are going to be able to be in this position. It's not going to be one of those things where the quick fix requires a quick fix from a coach as well. The quick fix to get everybody spackled together very quickly in order to move forward. That's difficult to do, especially when you're bringing in so many new faces every year. And you get to this point in the season and you don't know who's still on your team. I mean, look at Nebraska going to the Pinstripe Bowl. There's a lot of faces that have been playing over the last several months that aren't going to be in New York in a couple of weeks for that game. Mm-hmm. It's not the playoffs, obviously, but it's a scenario that, look, Penn State just lost their backup quarterback, for crying out loud. This is the scenario that we live in right now. The coaches that are able to make those cohesive connections early and strong cohesive connections early are going to be the ones who survive this the best.
Kevin, we were having this conversation earlier kind of about coaches, but in the current state of college football, would you rather have a great assembler of talent or a guy that was great at maximizing who was on his roster?
I would rather, at this point, in this moment, have a great assembler of talent. If you are someone who can scoop up 40 great players, and if you've got any sort of ability to mold and mesh these guys together, you're going to have a better chance to win. Because, look, it's difficult, I think, to be able – I don't know that you can build the old way anymore, because a team can just come in and supplement with 15 good players, and maybe those 15 good players hit, maybe they don't. That's the risk you play every single time you do something like this. That is the risk that you take when you say, I'm going to bring in 15 guys from the transfer portal. Well, maybe they stink. Maybe they don't get along. Maybe they don't like each other. Maybe one of them isn't as good as you thought he was, and it sort of throws off the whole chemistry of the deal. I don't know. But I do think if I'm going to be a coach right now in this current climate, and I am a great assembler of talent, I think I have an edge over most other coaches who maybe are trying to do it the old-fashioned way. Maybe you're trying to blend here and there. I think you've got to go out, get a bunch of talent, and see what you can do. If you can mesh them together, you've got a great chance to win early.
So is there an advantage as we kind of transition into college hoops of schools that you think, like, because we've seen it a couple of different ways, right? There's the Shaka Smarts, and they're 6th in the country. And I get it, rough weekend with Dayton, but Shaka hasn't been a portal guy. But then you go to like a Bruce Pearl or even Rick Barnes, some of these coaches that have done it differently. Is there a model that you think works for quicker cohesion with a smaller group of players like college hoops?
I think college hoops is easier because, A, they've done it longer. There's been more transfers in college hoops. And B, if I'm one really good basketball player and I transfer onto a team, I can immediately elevate that team. I don't need to have a massive influx of talent. If I've got a good basketball team and I'm, Coach Kevin Kugler, 5-time national champion coach of the year, and I go out and I say, hi, I'm Coach Kevin Kugler, 5-time national, because I would introduce myself as that every single place I went if I were a 5-time national champion coach of the year. I'm like at grocery stores, at the airport, it wouldn't matter. And I am introducing myself as the 5-time national champion coach of the year. But I get one really good player on my team that can completely catapult a team to the next level. I don't know that you can say that in football. I go out and get a really good quarterback. That's great. But if I have no one if I have 5-time national champion coach Kevin Kugler running routes as a wide receiver, I have no chance to win with that great quarterback. So I like the college basketball aspect of it better because I do think it's a quicker fix with one or two really good players. Now, you see guys like Eric Musselman at USC. When he came in, he revamped the entire roster. I think it's 11 new players on that roster this year for USC. So there are coaches who do that, and I think you'll see that a lot because there's so much transition in college basketball. They're more used to it. But I really do still believe that a coach can go get one or two players to supplement from the portal and make them a national champion contender. Purdue did it last year. They had all those players to go out and get Lance Jones. I mean, and Matt Painter is not a transfer portal guy. They get one guy in from the portal that they needed to fill a specific need, and that was enough to push that team into a national championship situation.
As you're watching and you're getting ready, you just mentioned what's going on at SC, and I just watched Cronin and UCLA in Arizona. You still, basketball, though, kind of like football, what you were talking about, you still kind of need that core group of guys, though, if you want to be able to function in chaos.
You do. You need that core, but it can be, the core is smaller. You know, in football, what's your core? How big does your core need to be to function in chaos? Yeah. Can it be just one player? Can it be just one quarterback? Can it be just a safety? Can it be some leader on each side of the ball? Maybe, but I feel like you need more. I feel like you need more from that team to be able to galvanize each position group in a certain way. I don't know that you necessarily, if I'm the alpha dog on a college basketball team, I can take over that moment and say, follow me, guys. 4 other guys on the floor, follow me in this moment. Or, hey, guys, it's crunch time. You know what to do. Feed it to me. I'm going to handle the rest of it from here. I just think there's a cohesiveness that comes from the demonstrated ability that you have that you can then trickle that down to the rest of the team. And I think it's a lot easier to do that with a smaller roster and a smaller core in college basketball than you have in college football.
So the hardest part of your job is figuring out the rosters. That was the note of all this whole deal, right?
And as a 5-time national champion coach of the year, it's really not that big a deal to me.
And to prove your point, Larry Bird dragged a bunch of Kevin Kluger's to a national title game. So I think you're right on basketball, Kevin. We appreciate the time.
Thank you. You know what? I would have been more than happy to wear that ring around and say, yeah, that's right. I'm a national champion. Sure, Bird had 83 of the 85 points we scored, but I also was on the floor.
Hey, safe travels too, buddy.
Have fun in Vegas.
See you guys.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska. Place your sports bets. Warhorse Sportsbook is in Lincoln and in Omaha. Make sure you check out the casino or warhorsecasino.com for promotions and a full list of house rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. Before we get to Bet On It, let's get to Jason. He's got some Nebraska volleyball takes on the Hurrdat hotline. What's going on, Jason?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
What's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. You know, I got triggered a little bit. Once either wrestling or volleyball gets started chatting about, it's like I got an antenna that goes up. So I will say, and my disclaimer is that I like Sam a lot. I mean, he's one of my favorites. And whether I'm listening to you guys or any other radio program, if I'm not listening to it live, I will make it a point to find a Sam podcast and listen to it because I think he's great. That being said, I mean, what are we doing, Sam? I get that. Like, I have all the respect in the world for Creighton volleyball. I agree. They extremely talented. I think the only absolute knock on them is the fact that they play in the Big East and they do not have the rigor they have to go through of a Big Ten, of an ACC, even an SEC. And I think the wear and tear is part of the season. And while they may not have the high-level recruits, I think it says something to John Cook, Nebraska volleyball, Wisconsin volleyball, Penn State volleyball, the schedule that you have to play and the wear and tear that takes on your body. And so I think he's discounting that. The thing that bothers me probably the most, though, is that I wouldn't mind his takes if some of the other things he were saying were somewhat accurate. I mean, we're talking about mentioning Vasquez Gomez for Pittsburgh as one of their best players, and she just plain is not.
Yeah.
I mean, Olivia Babcock is probably the best volleyball player in the country.
No question. Player of the year.
Fairbanks, Kelly, Tori Stafford. I could name 5 or 6 Pittsburgh volleyball players before I even get to their 6-year starter. And then we're talking about Andy Jackson and how she wasn't a 5-star. She was the number 1 middle blocker coming out of high school. Yes, she was a 5-star. And then we start talking about the 2 Penn State volleyball players that left Nebraska that could be starting for Nebraska. No, they couldn't. Maybe Jaravicius now because Merritt Beeson's not playing very well. But there is a reason why they left Nebraska. It's because they couldn't start there. Mm-hmm. Maggie Mendelson is not even remotely close to starting for. She would be our 4th middle blocker right now. And so, those are just examples. And so that's what's frustrating.
And that's without getting into like Allie and some others.
Exactly. And so I'm just like, I love takes. I love Sam's takes. And I get where he was going. Booth is a great coach. She is not the best coach in the country. She maybe one of them. She is not the best coach in the country. I'm not even going to go and say that John Cook's the best coach in the country. I think he's top 2 or 3, but I wasn't sure where he was going. It was almost like he was purposely trying to trigger a guy like me, and then almost trying to make, and once again, Creighton's a great volleyball team, and they have been for a couple of years now, for a handful of years now. But it was like he was purposely trying to, elevate them. And I think what he inadvertently did was put John Cook down and Nebraska volleyball down. And maybe he wasn't trying to do that, but the fact that he had all of these other little weird takes just made it seem as though he was.
All right, Jason, let me ask you one thing, because I know you're dialed. How hard is it, do you think? Because this is what first got me going. The sitting in the folded chair thing. I think volleyball, especially when girls are young, and it's one of the reasons why I was such a Krause fan, because how she dealt with expectations from like 6th grade on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Where do you put a premium on being able to manage personalities once they get into college, considering how many of these young ladies were targeted so early as like the anointed ones?
Is extremely high.
I
think looking at a lady like Harper Murray is a perfect example of that. I mean, not all the John Cooks of the world treat that the same way.
Yep.
Right. There's a good percentage of coaches, of high-level coaches.
She'd have to go find something else different to do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's extremely. And now I'm not saying that Booth can't do something like that. I don't think we know. I don't think we know. But I'm just saying she hasn't had to. And I think the premium is huge. It's huge. And I think he has changed. He has changed. I think they even mentioned this. I think maybe I've heard this mentioned where he, at one point in time, I think he maybe wasn't the happiest coaching, to be honest with you. And I think he's changed. I think he's loosened up.
I think you're 100% right.
So, and that's helped. I think you need to, especially when dealing with the talent that he has and trying to retain that talent, with the portal, with there's so many good teams now anymore. I mean, the fact that, that Creighton was able to almost make the Final Four, I think, just the parity, is in trying to retain all of that talent. You gotta be able to adapt. And it certainly seems like he can do it, which is pretty crazy to say at his longevity and his age.
Yeah. I appreciate
the call, bud.
He's definitely plugged in. He's dialed.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I keep wanting. I'm saying it without saying it, and he said it for me, so it's even better. Like his ability, John Cook's ability to evolve, and kind of get outside of himself to grow with the game. You can't undersell it. You just can't, especially after having that much success.
Yeah. being willing to change and grow after you've had a lot of success
it's
is
just
a lot harder than people think.
Just rare. We've seen coaches retire for less.
Yeah, we recently a bunch.
And conversely, you heard Cook with the great shot yesterday talking about Taylor Landfair. That's what she's paid to do. I couldn't believe it. He looked like he wanted to come back and get it.
Yeah.
But he's like, nah, I'm good.
I mean,
I'm a big Cook guy. So
when you're John Cook, you get a little leeway.
I lack objectivity.
No, I appreciate the conversation because
like these girls are handpicked for a long time. Managing those I don't know, man.
I also think with athletes that way, I do wonder if there's a point where you just kind of have to let go a little bit in terms of like
we talk about Elite 11 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They're all their version of Elite 11 quarterbacks.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe even higher level than that, honestly. Like you're talking about the top half maybe of the Elite 11 quarterbacks.
I mean, since middle school.
And at some point, you may get more out of players, and it's definitely better for their mental health instead of continuing to like drive the reins super hard to just be like, hey,
how many assistants
let's ease up a little bit. All of them.
Right. So
I mean, just all of them. At one point or another, it's all of them, right? Multiple times over. Yeah. Right. That's just kind of how it goes. It's a very different job than the job that Coach Booth has to do.
I wasn't.
It just is.
I wasn't triggered. I like Sam, but I'm glad.
Seems like
there were a lot. Well, I couldn't. There's a lot that I just couldn't let go.
Seems like you're a little triggered. Just like a little bit.
A little.
Just a tiny bit.
Still my guy.
No, it's okay. It's okay to. Like, I do think Coach Booth is one of the best coaches in the country, and I'm not plugged in.
Incredible.
I'm not plugged in with volleyball the way some of you guys are, but I find it hard to believe there's a ton that are better than she is. But again, I don't know if she would do well with the Nebraska job or if this is very uniquely suited to her skill sets. I think she has a JUCO background, so like that's a very different background, right? Like that's a very specific type of coach. Now it's a long time ago now. Maybe she could handle a Nebraska program. I don't know, but that's the $1 million question, right? We were talking earlier, and we'll talk to Jacob Padilla about some more volleyball and basketball here in a second. We were talking earlier about Rick Barnes. We talked about last week,
right?
Off
air. Yeah.
Like that's a guy who got a ton of talent at Texas, didn't win nearly as much as anybody wanted him to. At Tennessee, seems like he recruits a different type of guy, and seems to be all of a sudden a much more highly regarded coach. Funny how that works sometimes. That's DP. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back with Jacob Padilla to wrap up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on a Monday. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're joined now by Jacob Padilla of Hurrdat Sports. What's going on, JP? What's up, Jacob?
Good morning.
Young Jacob, how are we doing?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Good. Who got the regional vote? That's all I want to know.
I gave it to Lexi. So did Lincoln Arneal for most outstanding player. You mean?
Yep.
Yeah. We both gave it to Lexi. I think a few of the plays that Harper made in the last set there, I guess, pushed it in her favor for the ultimate decision. But yeah, it was. I mean, she was very deserving. She had a great weekend as well.
Jacob, better weekend for Nebraska getting back to a Final Four. Obviously, Creighton fell up short, but where do you think this tournament run can take Creighton's program if we're looking at big picture?
Interesting one. I think it was huge just to reach that stage, to make it onto make it to the chance to play for the Final Four there. I mean, you're going up against Sunday Night Football, but that's still a big spot. And you went toe to toe with the number one seed in their building where they never lose. Now it's about what Coach Booth can continue to do to kind of sell, like, hey, this is a place where you can do this regularly, because this was a pretty special class of seniors, both the ones that have been here for a long time and the ones that she went out and added from the portal this offseason. So there's a lot to replace it. They've got a good core coming back, but like you don't replace a Kendra Waite or a Nora Sis easily. And so now it's about going out and finding the next version of those players, to kind of take Creighton into this next phase. Because what we've seen so far is just every year, every kind of group of players they brought in have elevated the level of this program. And now it's about, all right, what can they do to keep that trend going? That third set was an absolute killer. Letting that one get away, I think that was a match right there, because you can't go 5 with Penn State on their home court and hope to come out with that one. So I think that's going to hurt. It was a pretty emotional press conference, but Creighton has nothing to hang their collective heads about, because that was a phenomenal effort from that program.
Jacob, is that the biggest difference as a program between Nebraska and Creighton right now, is that when a Kendra Waite and a Nora Sis graduate or leave, there is a question of, okay, who do you get to replace these two? Whereas with Nebraska, it's just, hey, there's always more talent in the pipeline.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a program on the rise and a blue blood of the sport, and one that is gotten to the point where it is, I mean, it's great effort for the coaches, but it's almost self-sustaining where you just almost expect that they're going to be able to do this year in and year out from recruiting perspective. Creighton's obviously elevated its recruiting level, but Booth has also done a fantastic job of identifying players that they needed and ones that would be great fits and provide exactly what the program needed to move forward. So I think what they've done will this year and over the last handful of years will help them continue to do that, continuing to land those high-level players. I don't know that Creighton's ever going to recruit at the level that Nebraska does, but few do. We're talking about 2-3 programs in the country that does that regularly. And Creighton's proved that it doesn't need to. Booth has done a pretty good job of identifying and selecting and developing players. So, I think it certainly is the question out there is like, all right, who is going, like, what does the setting look like moving forward? At least with the Pins, you've got Ava Martin coming back. You've got Reinhardt in the middle, coming back for an extra year, she said. And you've got some players they've been developing. You got Kaya Johnson coming back after a fantastic redshirt freshman year. So they've certainly got a good core of players that I think that they're excited about. But again, you don't replace like the Kendra Waite and Nora Sis are two of the best players to ever come through that program. You can't take that for granted. But also, I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt.
Young Jacob, our very own Jacob Padilla, Hurrdat's own. I guess that's ours. We'll share. JP, for years, we'll kind of joke and we'll land the plane and you'll say, kids, remember to make your free throws and, make your layups. Of all the numbers that you crunch in volleyball, how much of the equivalent would come down to passing for you in volleyball?
Yeah, that's where everything starts. Like both offense and defense stem from passing, because obviously if you can't handle the serves coming your way, that impacts the points the other team's going to put up, and it puts you in a bad spot to where you're not able to take a good swing. You either have to go out of system, or sometimes you just have to put up a free ball. And we saw. For stretches there, Wisconsin.
It's incredible.
And Cook talked about like early on, Wisconsin was serving tougher than Nebraska was, and got up to a bit of a slow start. I know Olivia Mauk had an uncharacteristic bad stretch at the beginning there, but as the game went on, Nebraska settled in and Wisconsin started to break down. And I mean, we saw some chaotic stretches there where Wisconsin just could not handle the ball. And that 7-0 run where Andy Jackson had 3 kills and a block during it, and like 2 of those were on overpasses where Wisconsin just completely mishandled and couldn't sent the ball somewhere where they didn't want to, and Nebraska took advantage of it. So there's a reason that Cook obviously has a lot of his go-to cliches for his press conferences, but serve and pass. That is the number one. That's what he preaches in practice. That's what he preaches in the press conference. And that's what it really comes down to, is being able to handle that. So the difference is being able to do what you want to do versus being forcing the other team to just kind of survive. Nebraska hasn't always been the most aggressive serving team where they're going to rack up a ton of aces. But the combination of them serving tough when they need to, and while they may not give aces or get aces out of it, they're still making the other team work. And we know how good Nebraska is in that back row. They've got elite passers all over the place back there, to the point where someone does struggle for a little bit. You're like, whoa, what's happening here? You're not used to that. So that's kind of how Cook has built this team, with the amount of littles, as they call them, that he plays back there, with Harper Murray and how she's developed as a passing option back there, where we saw that in the championship last year, where she had a really rough day and everybody kind of fell apart around her.
She was singled out. Just a difference a year makes.
Yeah.
Going from being targeted to, wow, I hope she doesn't get any touches.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, even last year, you saw it. Like, she was really picked on early.
Yeah.
And she got much better as the season went on. And then it was just a bad day in the championship. And Texas had an unbelievable serving day. And so that was kind of the last we saw of her. And then obviously everything she went through in the off season. And but this year, just continue to go to work. I mean, she's going to get a lot of balls served her way just by the nature of who she's playing with back there. So she's continued to handle that really well and continue to elevate her game. And she's stepped into Nebraska's top offensive role this year with Merritt Beeson kind of taking a step back and having some rough stretches here. Harper's been the one that has carried the team. And that last match wasn't necessarily her best offensive after a blazing start to the postseason. She did other things. And like she had 4 blocks in that last set there to help them close out the match. And again, continues to pass well, continues to play defense in the back row. So yeah, she's come a long, long way, and Nebraska's in a good place because of it.
Jacob, I want to hit some basketball with you here real quick. We got about 90 seconds left. I'll start with Creighton. Disappointed that Creighton wasn't able to match the juice against Alabama that they had against Kansas, or pleasantly surprised they were able to get back into it after the slow start?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think it just kind of showed that, like Mac talked about, like I've kind of been highlighting, the margin for error is just so slim. Yeah. And they weren't going to be able to survive Jemiah Neal kind of playing like he did. Like Mac pointed to, like that's the consistency issue. Ooh. That's what he's striving for and where he needs to get to. He's been pretty up and down and great in that last game. Wasn't great in this one in the role he needed to play. And they just didn't quite have enough juice. Obviously, Jackson McAndrew picked it up late from a shooting perspective, but yeah, the ability to compete when you're not playing well and to hang around and to get back into it, that will serve them well. But in terms of being able to like reach a high level of play, it's just it's kind of hard to expect that they're just going to do that they're going to be able to go toe to toe with the best teams they face with the current version of the team, unless a couple of these guys start to get a little bit more consistent in the roles that they're going to have to play moving forward.
That's our guy, Jacob Padilla, Hurrdat Sports, NEB Preps, Hale Varsity. He's all over the place. JP, we appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Jacob.
Talk to you later.
That's Jacob Padilla, our very own. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.